Introducing Unlock My Coach, the soulful marketing agency for coaches. Let's unlock your next level together. Let's connect.
Success to me, as corny as it sounds, is helping someone to be the best leader that they can be. My job is to listen to them and help them, like the name of your company, unlock what's really there inside and what they can do, because we all have it. Sometimes we just don't know we have it. I feel like if one person thinks, I can do that too, because you can, even if it isn't easy. It was very scary. It took a lot of effort. You can do it if you want, and we want it. So to me, that tells people when you feel hopeless and you cannot see any possibility of any way out, don't despair, because you will see that. It just happens in its own time. I can't change the whole world, but if I even make one difference in a client's life, I feel like that's a success. And that's my goal. And one thing that I don't regret is doing this at 68 years old.
Welcome to Unlock My Coach, a podcast for seasoned, soulful, and successful coaches. In every episode, you'll hear incredible stories from coaches who are building their brands and making their mark in the booming $20 billion coaching industry. Who am I? Stacey Gonzalez, your host and founder of Unlock, a digital marketing and personal branding agency that helps coaches launch, market, and grow their businesses. Ready to unlock your coach? I know I've got your key in here somewhere. On today's episode of Unlock, we are joined by the incredible Cathryn Baker, an executive leadership coach who helps business professionals step into their fullest potential as confident leaders. Through the power of core energy coaching, Cathryn guides her clients to connect with their true passion and unlock their full potential. Her unique approach focuses on identifying what's holding them back and creating the shifts needed to move forward. Cathryn works with founders, CEOs, managers, and emerging leaders, helping them invest in their growth and create lasting change. Get ready for an inspiring conversation about leadership, transformation, and the journey to becoming the best version of yourself. So let's dive in. Welcome, Cathryn.
Thanks so much, Stacey. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here today. You always bring such a genuine, authentic energy into everything you do. And I know there's a lot that our listeners are going to want to know about you and a little bit about your story. So talk to us first, kind of as we kick things off. How do you define success for yourself as an executive leadership coach?
Well, I would say, boy, that's a loaded question. But success to me, as corny as it sounds, is helping someone to be the best they can be, the best leader that they can be. And, I can't change the whole world, but if I even make one difference in a client's life, I feel like that's a success. And that's my goal.
I love that. So how have you figured out how to help those clients achieve success? And what does success mean for your clients?
Well, it's different for every client. And coaches do know that, it is all about the client. Of course, there are recurring themes that I see. I mean, who doesn't want to improve their life? And so generally, that's the goal in some form or fashion with each client. It may be professional. A lot of times, even though I'm executive leadership coach, there are personal goals in there too, because nobody lives, in a vacuum. Your personal life and your professional life come together. So it's so interesting to listen to the clients and hear what their goals are. But my job is to listen. My job is to listen to them and help them, like the name of your company, unlock what's really there inside and what they can do, because we all have it. Sometimes we just don't know we have it.
That's right. We do all have it. We do all have that thing inside of us that is the dream or the goal or the vision. And for many of us, it's really hard to go from a vision or a dream or a hope in something in our life, and then to actually seeing the output or the evidence or the thing come to fruition and really making that happen. So can you talk a little bit about what that's meant for you in your own life? Like I know you've had very successful businesses. I know you've done some pretty cool things before you stepped into the role of executive leadership coach, right? So can you talk a little bit about how that journey of success for you brought you to kind of this place.
Sure. Well, 37 years in the staffing industry, and I was primarily light industrial, and those who are in staffing will understand that. So I had started 2 companies and successfully exited both. And when I left my last one, I was so ready for a change, but I didn't know it. I had sold to some really terrific people and stayed on and for actually 6 years to run a couple of offices. I opened a new one for them and they were terrific people to work for. And I was in an industry I loved, but I was actually bored. Hate to say that but I was. That was a feeling I'm sure many people can relate to. And I didn't even recognize it. So I wasn't doing what was fulfilling to me anymore. And I made a really radical change. And some people think it was very quick because really within 6 months, I went from running these staffing companies in El Paso, Texas, to living in the hill country in East Texas and on a ranch very rurally and starting a coaching and consulting company. But 6 months before that, I didn't know I wanted to be a coach. I did know I wanted to continue to help people. And in the staffing industry, you do that. You help people find jobs every day, and we help customers. So that part, was still there, is still a part of me. But there was this, I call it, and my friend does, my unlived life. She sent me a text and said, "Hey, Cathryn, your unlived life is waiting for you." What does that mean? I didn't even know I had an unlived life. And I sure did not think it was on a ranch, but she said that. And I wrote it down on a block of wood and kept it by my desk. And 6 months later, my life was completely changed. It was very scary. And, there, of course, I could go on and on about this. It took a lot of effort. I didn't just click my fingers and we were gone. We had to sell a home. My husband and I left a very comfortable life. Could have been there, till I was 90 or whenever, but we decided not to. And both of us took the risk. And here we are. It's been 1 year and it's been a ride. And of course, you were part of that. I couldn't have done it without so many resources, including you and your company. So I feel like if people hear this, if one person thinks, I can do that too, because you can, even if it isn't easy, you can do it if you want. And we want it.
I love that. And I always appreciated about that when I first met you. The thing that was so outstanding to me was you could have had every reason to be like, I built and sold 2 companies. I'm living kind of in my dream space, in my dream home with my husband and my animals. And I'm at a point where I could say, done. You've checked the boxes, you've done the things. And that wasn't enough for you. You said, I built 2 in-person businesses. I'm going to build a third and it's going to be completely different. It's going to be digital and it's going to be through coaching. And not that you don't go and meet people and do work in person. I know you do that. But basically the way you market yourself as a coach and a consultant is a little, you take all the best of the in-person and then you add on the digital pieces, and you've done that.
Yep.
What are, maybe some mistakes that you made either early on or that you're thinking like, I didn't know this part? Like what kind of comes up for you when you think about, when you started?
Gosh, how much time do we have left? I don't even know if I could list them all, but biggies. I wish I had used resources like you and a few other professional resources sooner. So I did enroll in extensive in the IPEC coaching certification process. So that was a smart thing I did. And that took a year. But if I had had you sooner and, helping me with my branding and marketing, because I knew nothing about that. It's very different starting. I have a business partner, Sue Marks, but that's so different than starting a staffing company. In fact, it's a lot harder because I'm marketing myself. So it took me 6 months before I found you on LinkedIn. And I wish I had done that sooner. I wish, although I love our website, I waited for it to be done before I really started marketing myself and being an online presence on LinkedIn. So I waited too long for that. And a lot of people think you have, and I said, I can't put myself out there without having a website. Yes, you can. You can, you can, you can. So I wish I had done that differently. The others, there's a lot of little things, but I do give myself grace for taking a longer time to launch because I was moving. I moved a house we lived in for 27 years and in a completely different area. I had a lot of adjustments to make. I've never worked from home before, first time, and that takes adjusting. And so I would say, advice wise, give yourself grace. I wasn't good at it in the beginning, and that's something you had told me. Like I said, I don't want to be on video, Stacy. Just do it. You say, just do it. It gets easier. I don't want to put these stupid posts on LinkedIn. Just do it. And mine were stupid in the beginning. But I don't see that as a mistake. I see that as part of the process. And then I guess another thing I wish I had done a little bit differently was not to be so hard on myself. I had expectations that because I had started companies, how hard could it be to get, coaching and consulting clients? That's going to be a breeze. And it wasn't. So if I had been a little bit more realistic, but on the other flip side of that, if you're too realistic, you'd never do anything because it's too scary. It all happened the right way because it happened the way it was supposed to happen.
And when things are too easy, it's just, for lack of a better term, are we really growing? Are we really evolving? Are we really expanding who we are and who we can be? If it's just a whole lot of the same old of what we've already done, I think that just keeps us kind of stale and stagnant. So there's something about the challenges that it takes to become your brand, to become the thought leader, not hide behind a company or a logo or
right.
And that is a very different type of understanding of who you are. There's a clarity that comes with that. Doing a website, like there's nothing wrong with doing a website. It does help you get clarity about
Absolutely.
what you want to do and how you want to do it. But many times, a lot of people will stay stuck in analysis paralysis, building the product, building the offering, building whatever it is, versus getting out there, putting yourself out there, talking to as many people as you can, learning how to have sales calls, learning how to do like all of those pieces when we first start.
That's an excellent point. It was analysis paralysis. It was. And then you start, the head talk and freaking yourself out. So you do just have to go for it. And one thing that, I want to say that I don't regret is doing this at 68 years old. I actually started at 67 and then I turned 68 because there were plenty of people that were like, really, Cathryn, why don't you just retire? People did say that to me. And actually it sort of pissed me off when they said that because it made me even more want to, why? Because I don't want to retire. I don't. If I did, I would have. So, there's that too.
Well, I'm going to guess that that's because you have a vision and you have something inside that is not done yet. And so do you want to talk a little bit about, your hope, your vision, your purpose for, why you are choosing to be a coach?
Yeah, it really goes back to, like I said, helping people, even though that sounds so corny, and after 68 years, and everybody has stories and I've got a million. I mean, bad things happen to me, bad things happen to everybody, but I lived through them. And so I feel like, at the risk of sounding like woo woo, which coaches can sound that way, is that I feel called to tell people those stories and it might help someone else. Just as you helped me telling me stories about when I started, I didn't know what I was doing either, and that really helped me. If somebody I'm speaking to has a dream, but they're afraid to do it for whatever reason, or think that they can't get through what they're going through, maybe something I say from my experience will help. And to me, yes, I'm here to make money too, but I'm not looking to be a billionaire at this point. I already built a couple of companies. I'm not a billionaire, but I did fine. And that's not my primary goal. I want to make money, but I want to do it by helping people.
I love that. That's why we help coaches market themselves, because we know that coaches are on the front lines helping people live their dreams and their visions,
Yeah.
make their visions, turn their visions into reality. And so that work is really important work. And those are the people who, like, they can't do it for you. A coach can't do it for you.
Right.
But to have somebody who will kind of lock arm in arm with you and say, we're going to go through this together, and you're going to see who you can be and what you can do when you put yourself out there in ways that you may not have tried or explored or even thought possible before. That is a really cool thing. And our stories, you hit on this notion of, our stories. One of the things we do, and I know that you and I did this a lot, is we pulled out some of those moments. And one of the stories that I'd love for you to share is when you were for your first marriage, and kind of what happened there and what you learned, and how you moved through that, when many people, including, I have a sister who lost a husband, and it's been, I think it'll be 11 years this year. And I can still feel and sense there's still a lot more there. She's never dated. She's never moved on. I mean, it's a really sad thing. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit about, like, that story for you.
Sure. Well, yes, we had been married for 10 years and I was 28, no, 9 years. I was 28 years old, and he was in the Air Force. And anyway, he became very ill. I'm sorry. That goes way back. I'll talk about when he died, because he passed away. I was 28 when he passed away. He had been ill before, and we had him for another 6 years, which was very fortunate. But I got a phone call when I was at work, sitting just right like this. And it was a policeman from another city, and he had been traveling and he had been killed. And so at the time, I was 6.5 months pregnant with our second daughter. And I had a 4-year-old, at home. And that period, it's a lot of it is a blur. But I was working as a recruiter, making zero money. A friend and I had started a company, the same woman that I started then our successful staffing company with. But we had no money. I mean, we had $100 in the bank, and here I was. And I truly thought that was the first time in my life that I ever felt hopeless, because I couldn't imagine what I would do. I didn't know how I'd raise kids. I didn't know how I'd be alone. I was new in El Paso, only a year. So I didn't have any friends except my sister-in-law. But the hopelessness turned into a strength, not overnight by any means. And I went through all those stages. I didn't believe it. I was mad. Then I was sad. There were so many things. But about a year and a half later, my friend and I started our first staffing company. And so I found strength with family, of course, in my faith, and it was strength that I didn't even know I had. So to me, that tells people, when you feel hopeless and you cannot see any possibility of any way out, don't despair, because you will see that. It just happens in its own time. And one thing, this is just one tip, I talked about it to anybody who would listen. And ever since then, that's kind of been my way of getting through things. But I remember reading that in a book. Somebody gave me a book on grief, and it said, tell your story, tell it over and over again. How I heard about it, how I felt, because then it does make you see, okay, well, this really did happen and I have to accept it. And you don't do it for sympathy, but it's for you. So that's what happened.
Yeah. And 40 years ago, you could have decided to shrink back. You could have decided the life that you had dreamed and imagined, and you had one child, you were on the way with your second, and you could have been like, I'm done now. Like, that's it. I don't have much left to give. But you found a way, and the resilience of the human spirit. And you not only found a way, but you went and then successfully built and sold 2 staffing companies and remarried, happily remarried.
Yes.
Right. And so you found a way to move forward through a really, really dark night of the soul experience. And there's something about all of us have those, whether it's,
We do.
tragic in the way that yours was, or maybe not as tragic, but we all have those moments. And I think that's the work of coaching. And when we think about working with a coach versus maybe working with a therapist or a counselor or something like that, working with a coach allows us this opportunity to take our dream and make it real, make it tangible, make it something, put some substance around it. And so, as you kind of think about this new space, and you are new, you are just at the beginning of where you're starting, what would you say you've learned as kind of the importance that when new coaches come in and they've got their certificate, or they're thinking about getting a certificate, and they're ready to kind of step into this, put their messages and their stories out into the world, what would you say is the importance of that, building your personal brand, establishing your thought leadership, thinking a little maybe differently about quote unquote marketing?
First of all, it's very, very important. And I don't think the average coach cannot do it without someone like you. It really taught me, don't try to do everything yourself, which I've always been an advocate of using consultants and asking for help. But in this case, oh my gosh, and like I said, that's a regret. I waited too long to do it. So absolutely, because most coaches don't have that marketing background, and a lot of them don't. At least I have a business background. So there's a lot of part of this process that's not scary to me, because I've done it before, but I have never marketed myself. So yeah, I would really, and I do, I'm a big advocate. I tell every coach I talk to, and I talk to a lot of them, that you really need to get help with that. You will be amazed at how that elevates. And the way you did it, Stacy, with you did have me write down, tell me your stories. I did a timeline, like, holy moly, I started when I was like a teenager. So a lot of stuff happened, and that was really a great way to start pulling out the stories. I would have never done that without you telling me. Or who's your, customer? Oh, I don't know. I started out a business. I didn't even identify my customer. So it's super valuable.
I love that. That's such a great activity and experience, especially for somebody like you and a lot of the people that we work with, because you've got all this stuff. And it's just a little bit of unpacking and a little bit of like cleaning out the closet, if you will. Like, let's look in there. Let's see what's hidden. And I don't know about you, but and I always tell clients this when we first start working, like the first 6 to 8 weeks are the most intense. Like that is where I've got to see, because I can always usually sense the gold, the gems there, right? Like I knew with you immediately, like, oh, there's a lot of richness here. There's a lot of gold. You're in Texas. We're going to sift through the gold. But like, frankly, you also got to get through all the shit, right? Like there's just stuff. There's stuff that you don't need anymore. There's stuff maybe that you think you need. I'm like, yeah, we don't necessarily need that. Let's like focus here, right? And then there's that whole process, which I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit about, when you started to actually tell your stories and put it out there, and the response that came as a result, and what surprised you with that.
Well, first of all, just warning to everybody, Stacy makes you do a lot of work.
That is not going to be good for my commercials. Don't you listen? Thanks.
Yes, it is.
Stacey's hard to work with.
Yeah. She's easy to work with, but just like coaches know, our customers or our clients do all the work. And rightly, it's what we need to do. Unpacking work, meaning unpacking the stories. You have to think, and that all those things, that's why we needed you. That's why I needed you, because you made me do that. So there's that. But now I forgot.
And I'm going to add to that. I'll add one thing. We do it in two ways. When I started with you, I was not doing the done for you version. So the only option I had at that time was like, we're going to do it hand in hand. You were an ideal client in the sense that I got a ton of clarity. Like, oh, I want to go like full in on niching down on coaches, because I love the work we were doing.
Yeah.
I knew I could do a done for you where like it's very hands off, But with you, that didn't feel like the right thing. I knew we needed to do this together. And so I just felt like it was the perfect opportunity. And we both grew as a result. And now
Oh,
I'm
yes.
launching my vision that was not a vision when I first met you. I did not have the vision I have now when I met you.
And
So it's
that's
really
so
cool.
amazing. That is so amazing. And yeah, I'm glad I had that version because um, I don't think I'd be where I am now if you just gave me the, here. And yeah, we literally wrote, I would write a post, you would critique it and then say, try this again, or I know a couple times. Yeah, you were very this one's pretty good, but I don't really see where you're going with that. Or remember your audience, really great stuff. So by the time, yes, the first 6 to 8 weeks were intense. But then when it was the last month and I was getting so nervous, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to write these posts all by myself, which of course you never truly abandoned me. Here we are. But by then, yes, you had brought out, I put vulnerable posts out. I was thinking, who cares that I'm 68 years old? Who cares that this happened? But they did. And you were right. So it was a journey. And also, I'm glad it was 3 months. If it had been, a 2-week course or so, it would have not been, I wouldn't have had the results that I had. I needed all that time. So, and you held me accountable, which is what coaches do with their clients too, but with love.
Yes,
So,
with love, lots of
yes,
love.
lots of love. Definitely the difference. I had 42 followers. I mean, now I have, what I think I have, I'm getting close to like 1,200 or something, which is laughable compared to some people, but I know.
That's amazing.
I love it. And
It's
I have
amazing.
new people that I've connected with
Yes.
so many people.
Yes.
I followed your advice on that. So every week now I have at least 2 or 3 connect calls. And it's not just me asking to connect now. Now people ask for connect calls with me.
That's right.
So that's a huge, to me, it's like, wow. So the thought leader part, yeah, I've come so far with that. And some of my posts are just about that. I don't get as many likes or connects on that or comments, but I'm still putting out good content. And I've had so many positive comments that say everything you say has value and stuff like that. So I'm like, wow, look at me.
Look at you. Look at you. Okay, so here we go. I
Uh-oh.
am going to put you on the hot seat at this time in our podcast. So, very short answers. We're going to rapid fire. And so, kind
Okay.
of just the first thing that naturally comes up. Okay, ready?
All right. Yeah, I'm ready.
The value of working with a coach is
Fulfilling your dreams.
the book I always recommend,
Stories that stick.
the superpower I bring my clients,
My ability to connect.
my first client taught me,
To trust the coaching process.
one non-negotiable value I have,
You must be kind.
the wildest dream I'm manifesting right now is,
Oh my gosh. Driving farm equipment. It's kind of
that you're going to be able to drive the farm, and that you're going to be on the John Deere. Okay,
the tractor.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh gosh, I love that. I recharge and refocus by
Walking on the ranch.
If my coaching business was a song, it would be
Oh my gosh. Oh, happy days.
the biggest unlock I've learned being a coach.
Biggest unlock. Oh, that's a good question. Biggest unlock is that everybody needs a coach.
Who is the coach you most admire?
I most admire the coach that I'm currently working with, who is Andrea Scott.
In 5 years, I hope people understand the coaching industry is
Essential.
Cathryn Baker, executive leadership coach. Thank you so much for being on today's episode. And if people want to connect with you, where can they go to find you?
They could go to my website at thinkavansara.com or find me on LinkedIn, Cathryn Baker, and love to connect with you or send me a DM. And thank you so much for having me on your fabulous podcast.
Thank you, Cathryn.